What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Tonight we're in the shop and we're going to be starting on the install of some gears in this JLU. This Jeep may look familiar to you. About a year ago, I installed a 2.5-inch Clayton suspension lift on this, and I actually put 37s on. He came back and put some 35s on, but he said that, or the owner said that it's definitely time for some gears. And so he asked me what I recommended, and I asked, you know, what range, tire size you plan on going, and everything like that, and what he did, what he towed with it. And I suggested these Revolution gears. They are 456 gears, and obviously they're from Revolution. And he got the kit. It was under, I want to say it was under $1,000. He got all of this. So he's got the Dana 30 front install kit, and then he has the Dana 30 ring and pinion. And then there's the Dana 44 install kit. It even comes with some sealing compound. That's pretty cool. And then here is the ring and pinion for the rear Dana 44. And there's the part numbers right here. And I apologize if I sound nasally. I've got my yearly cold. Of course, whenever I take on a big project like this, I like to be feeling my best. But of course, I feel like crap. I really don't like working in my shop, especially doing gears when I don't feel good, but the show must go on. So let's get started. So the first thing that I'm going to do is get the Jeep up in the air and get the tires and wheels off. So I went ahead and got the Jeep up in the air, got the tires off, and now I'm going to start draining the differential fluid. And these Dana 44s, they have a drain plug, which is really convenient. Alright, so, oh yeah, ooh, that's kind of dirty. Interesting. Okay, so I'm just gonna let this sit and drain, and while that's sitting and draining, I'm gonna start taking these bolts out for the drive shaft right here. And so these, I'm just using a Torx bit. I think it's a T50. So I'm gonna slowly try to get these out. These have been known to break, so you don't need to put an impact or anything on them. Just be really careful and go really slow with these, and they should come right out. So I have the drive shaft out. You can see it's disconnected from the yoke right here, and then I have it tied up here. I did not remove it at the transfer case. I just wrapped some wire around it just to tuck it up out of the way. So now I'm going to remove the diff cover. I'm going to go ahead and pop the diff cover off, and then let whatever remaining fluid is inside, go ahead and let it drain out too. Oh yeah, it is really dark in there.
Oh, you think darkness is your ally?
You see that? So this should look like honey. It does not look like honey. There's no like actually dirt in it, but there's just a lot of metal particles, which is kind of concerning to me. But luckily, you know, we're going to be replacing everything inside, And whenever you do a ring and pinion install, you always replace the bearings and the seals and the races, everything like that, either way. So, you know, it's really not, like, I'm not in panic mode or anything like that, but it's just interesting to see that it turned everything black in here. But I'm gonna spray it with some brake cleaner, and just because everything that I do, I just like to do very clean whenever I do gears. Everything, I don't like any grit on my hands or anything like that. So before I take the axle shafts out, I'm gonna go ahead and spray it with brake cleaner. That way it can go ahead and drip out while I'm taking the axle shafts out. Cleaning right up, so everything has gone from black to gray, like, really quick. I hope y'all can see that changing colors on camera. So while this is still dripping out, I'm going to go ahead and remove the caliper, just because I have to get the axle shaft out. Oh God, I feel terrible. So these are the bolts right here, and they are a 18mm socket. And we got one up top. So the next thing that I'm going to do is take this off, take the caliper off, and then just kind of let this ride right up here right now. Just kind of out of the way. Maybe on that shock shaft or something like that. And then there is also some 18mm nuts that I'll be taking off. You got 4 of those. You got 1, 2, 3, 4 on the back side. So I'll be popping those off real quick. That way I can go ahead and get this out of the way. So now I'm going to take this rotor off. Ugh. This one I had to beat for several minutes with a rubber mallet before it comes off, but it will come off. So the next thing that I'm going to do is go ahead and try to get this axle shaft out. So this is not a C-clip axle. So the only thing holding this axle shaft into the carrier are those 4 bolts that you took off on the back. So now I'm just going to reach in here delicately and just start prying just a little bit in different locations. Aha! There we go. You can see this thing is very dirty also. Holy moly. This is interesting. So this is all going to have to be cleaned up before it's back in the Jeep. Huh. Look at that. That can't be good for my skin. So looking down these axle tubes, it is covered in this black stuff that was all over my hands. And I'm going to have to clean this whole axle tube out because it is absolutely disgusting. I know I can't get y'all in there to see how bad it is, but it's like how that axle shaft was. It is like that all 360 degrees inside of this tube. It's really bad. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the other side done just like this to get the axle shaft pulled out, and then we'll get the carrier out, and then we'll start cleaning. This is gonna take a lot of cleaning. So back underneath the Jeep here, I'm going to go ahead and take this carrier out, but before I do that, I always like to mark my caps right here. So you want to put these back exactly the way they came. So I just do 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's kind of like my sequence, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to mark this one as 1, and I'm just using a punch. I'm just punching it one time. So there's one, and then I'll do two right here. So there's two marks right there. Right here I'll do three, and then I'll do four right there. So got all these marked, and now I can remove them, and I know exactly which way I took them out. I'm going to take a 15mm impact socket. Go ahead and get these bad boys out. Man, this is just super dirty. Or it's super metally. Not good. Take this one out. So keep in mind there are shims right here. I need to make sure that these shims do not fall, get mixed up. They need to come out with the carrier. This is very important. So I've got the carrier out. It's really heavy, so I'm gonna go put it down. So before I proceed, I'm just gonna come in here with a rag and just clean up. This is very alarming. I think the Jeep has 50 or 60,000 miles on it. And it isn't like a wheeler. This is just like a daily driver. But either way, no matter what's going on with it, we're going to fix it and we're going to clean it. Like I just stuck my finger in those tubes. Like watch this. So I'm sticking my finger in this tube. You see that? That shouldn't be there. Like I said, this should all look like honey. So now I'm going to get this pinion off. I'm just going to take my impact and throw up here. Got that off. Now I'll get the pinion all the way out. Whew, that scared me. Alright, so got the pinion seal. Now I can take the really cool bearing that comes in these Dana 44s. It's got the double bearings. That's a pretty cool design. I like seeing those. There's a lot of metal particles in here. These bearings were going to be failing here shortly, whether he was going to re-gear or not, because there is a ton of debris in here. So now I'm going to get the bearing race out right here. So my hands were too dirty and I couldn't hit the record button on the camera, but when I was punching out this pinion race, the inner pinion race, this one is the one that has the shim behind it. So definitely when you're driving this out, make sure that you don't let it go fling across the shop and up under a toolbox or something. Definitely make sure that you have your hand ready to catch it, and just to make sure that you don't lose this, because this is going to be pretty much our starting point for our new gear setup. So now that I have everything out, I got all the races out, got the axle shafts out, got the carrier out. Ugh. Oh gosh, this stuff is everywhere. I'm going to start cleaning this thing. This is going to take me a while, but I have got to clean all of this, because if I just put all this stuff back in, he's going to be having issues from here on out. And I definitely don't want that for him or anything, or the Jeep or anything like that. So we've got a lot of cleaning to do. Like I said, there's just a ton of metal debris. So I have everything laid out here on the table. I have the passenger side, driver side, And this stuff is really dirty, so I'm going to break this down. I'm going to pull the bearings off and pull the ring gear off, and then I'm just going to start cleaning. So I have everything pretty much cleaned up on the inside of the axle. That was a chore. I don't know if y'all could tell on camera how bad these axle tubes were, but they were completely caked on the inside. It was really gross. But I've got them all cleaned out. I've got my races and bearings. I've got them all sorted out here. I have got the pinion in my freezer, and so I'm probably going to leave that in the freezer for 24 hours, and then I'll show you why I do that probably tomorrow. But right now, since I have the carrier all cleaned up, I'm probably going to go ahead and clean up this ring gear and go ahead and get that installed on the carrier. So I got these torqued down to 135 foot-pounds. I had my dad come over and hold the crowbar, and he just held it still. And then I had this connected to the garage door and just torqued them down. But I have it all torqued down, and now it is ready for some bearings. So we'll go ahead and get those on. So the next thing that I'm going to work on is my shims. So I have my pinion shim here. I have my driver's side, which is the larger shim. And then I have the passenger side. And these are for the carriers. This is obviously for the pinion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my gauge finder, and I'm going to find the thickness of these. And then I'm going to get as close as I can with the shims that came with the kit. And that is going to be my starting point. So that's kind of what I do with my gears, is I just use these shims thickness and just to get me in the ballpark of when I put it in the vehicle. I have all of my shims ready to go. I got them all measured out. Now I just got to go through and clean them and just make sure that there's no burrs or anything. I think there was one that had a burr. And you just want to make sure that none of your shims have little burrs like that. So obviously I'm not going to be using that one, but just something to keep in mind, because that probably wouldn't make a big difference, but it's just something that I'm a little OCD about. So I got the pinion out of the freezer and then I heated up the bearing just a wee bit. That way it would melt the ice on the way down. And of course it just went right on with just a push of my hand. So now I can start kind of getting everything back to the axle. So I went ahead and punched in the races for the pinion. I've got my shims back there. I did verify that they are seated. And all I did was just use a brass punch and then this this race driver. So now I'm going to, without the crush sleeve, I'm going to put in the pinion and go ahead and get that installed, get my bearings on. I'm not going to put the seal on just yet, and I'm not going to be using my new nut just yet. So, got the pinion, sliding that in, put the bearing on the back, just like so. So I've got the yoke on the back now. I'm just going to try to tap that on as best as I can. So I have my pinion all in, and then I have my pinion preload. I've got it about 15 right now, which is fine because I have to tear this all back apart either way. But so now I'm going to get the carrier in with the shims. So I have my big shims, which will go right here, and then I have my little shims, which will go right there. I've got my caps, I've got them all cleaned up. I went ahead and cleaned this really good just to make sure there's no contaminants, nothing gross or any metal shavings or anything like that. So we'll go ahead and get this carrier in. All right. So this is a very tedious process. So I'm holding the carrier, I'm holding the shims, and I'm just making sure that nothing falls out. And it is very tight, but it will fit. So I've got the carrier wrestled in with the shims. That was a little aggravating, but so now I'm gonna tighten these up or just torque them down. That way I can check my backlash, and then if my backlash is decent, we'll go ahead and throw a pattern on here and see if we're even close to where we need to be. It may be a little high, but let me grab an actual tool and check the backlash on it. So I got my backlash where I need it. I'm right in spec. That is spot on. So it is right in between. So this is, whenever I'm checking for backlash, I like to check my backlash in different spots just to make sure that I'm getting the same backlash everywhere around. And I am, so which is good. So now we're gonna see what pattern we've got here. So I'm gonna get some ring and pinion paint and go ahead and start painting this up. So I went ahead and cut in just a little bit of differential fluid, and I'm just going to start painting. I like to do 3 or 4 teeth on here. All right, let's see what we got. I'm just going to rotate this around, and I'm just going to apply some pressure right here. Come back. I'm just going to do a couple of patterns like this. I have pretty much got this where I want it. You can see right here, I've got my backlash. It is right at 7. So these Dana 44s, I think you can do these anywhere from like 7 to 9 thousandths, and they kind of like to be a little bit on the tighter side, so I'm right at 7, so that's really good. My coast side and drive side, that is near about perfect. So I've painted several different spots on here just to make sure that I'm getting the correct pattern all the way around, and I am. I want to make sure that my patterns are consistent, make sure that I'm not getting a weird pattern on this side or anything like that. So I'd say this one's good to go. So now that it's good to go, now I get to tear it all back apart, put the pinion seal in, and I also have to put the crush sleeve in. So don't want to forget that on the pinion. So I'm gonna go ahead and start tearing this down. So I went ahead and tapped the seal in, and now I'm gonna take my crush sleeve and place it like this with the flange side going inside of the bearing there. And hopefully I'll put this in for the last time and get that seated in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower the Jeep down, and then I'm going to start disassembling the front. I may not start on it tonight because it's getting kind of late and I'm super tired and I'm still kind of getting over my cold, but I don't know, I'll probably go ahead and start on it. I'm pretty stubborn.